So I guess the first thing, Bill, is just like to get a sense of what the time frame would normally be for a development project such as the 428 Cobra Jet. Obviously not, it wasn't an entirely new engine from scratch, but it was significant work for both the engine and the vehicle. And would you consider the schedule that you worked on with the 428 as a very aggressive schedule? Or was that pretty much normal what it would take? Because
Oh no, the haranguing that was going on with Tasca, you know, he's the guy that really was pissed off on us, the 70s, 67 Mustang that had a larger engine compartment. And he expected, well, when you got a bigger engine compartment, you put a bigger engine in it. That's why they did that design. And when he got the first vehicle, he took it out for a ride, and the Chevy dealer across the street beat the hell out of him again, and then he was really pissed off. And then what he did is he pulled together a set of specifications that he liked to use whenever they were sponsoring a drag racing car. See,
you just wondering about timeline.
Well, okay. Well,
it was
the only way I can explain it is the way I think.
The other background is fine as well. Don't worry about that. It's all good information.
Yeah. So Tasca was so pissed off that they made a larger engine bay, but they put the carryover engine in. That's what just pissed him right off. And so he went out and created his
King of the Road.
The King of the Road, the KR. And he said, this one is the way it should be. And the KR was his way of building, take a stock car and put a bunch of aftermarket pieces together that he liked, and he wanted to use that. But when I was told when I was brought back from hell working in a cooling group to take over this project, they said, you find out what Tasca wants to use, and then you figure out, you know, what to do with it. And so that took, you know, a week and a half, even expedited, to get the parts. And as soon as I got the parts, I recognized them. They were the FE engine family parts, and I just dropped them right in the dumpster. And I'm just not going to use them because it's just, you're headed for trouble. The Ford family engine parts just did not survive very well. And what Tasca had done, he had used parts from the old Fairlane launch in '62 and the Boss, or the 302 launch in '63. And it was all these several combinations that he had already been using over the counter, not with the production engine. And you know, to my way, we would be insulting passengers that bought one that had Ford parts, because they don't last that long. And so we took on the way I wanted to try. It was all guesstimation, very frankly. And the two engineers that worked with me and myself, we just, I said, look, what we're going to do is we're going to decide how we're going to approach this, what I want to change. We're going to make up a sketch of what we want the component people to do the way I want to do it, and not the way they're used to doing it if we don't like. And the first guy we dealt with, he didn't agree. He said he wouldn't do that. You know, he's used to doing it the regular way, and I talked to his supervisor and said, I can't tolerate that. I said, I want to make some changes that are meaningful and get us away from the Ford family parts, because they are a big problem. And then we found a guy that was a relatively new guy, you know, a 3-year working in component engineering. And we say, this is what I like to do. And the guy said, hey, that sounds so, you know, he was glad to have a chance to do something that was unique. And he said, yeah, you know, I'd love to do that. You know, that just sounds like a lot of fun. That's how we started. We went back, laid a plan, made our models, you know, just drawing a picture on the paper of how we wanted him to make the parts that we needed from him, and explain why. I said, as long as you can make it, and you know, if you got a question, come and ask us. Is it good enough? And I told him what the things I was thinking are important, more important than the company has been using. And the first one that I remember was to lift the fuel, where the way the gasoline was put into the vehicle at the highest possible left. And that's one thing we did. We used all the room we could to get that piece as high in the air as we could, so we could be going down, always going downhill. And we were going to make sure we weren't going to have things that caused it not to flow very well, you know, something that goes like that, or something that goes like that, you know, a hard change. Everything was going to be smoothed out so that we get sure delivery of what was coming to it. And we did that for all the parts. That's the way we took it when we ran with that, and started designing parts. And it takes, you know, designing parts are 2 weeks at a time, because you visit the guy that's working on what you want, and you got to have agreement to do it the way we want to do it. That's all we did. Is that sufficient?
So you could complete, say, a revised cylinder head design in 2 weeks?
Well, yeah, it takes up to 2 weeks for the guy to do all the sketching,
Yeah.
and you know, getting it to fit, and we gave him the other parameters, you know, like in many of the Ford engines, fuel is coming in, like in the Ford family engines, the fuel comes in and it goes into a manifold that's about that wide. Honest to God, it's that wide. It's that long, and there's all kinds of problems with that I had noticed, where there was burn-in, and that's the material that is put into the die, and then you shoot the iron in, and just like that. That's how fast the iron is, molten iron, 3,100 degrees Fahrenheit. It's like that. It's all done, and then you wait for it to cool down, and then strip it apart. And that was concerns that I had. So we got past that, and we started making the parts, and then we designed the parts. The parts got to be purchased from whoever makes the final parts that are just sand and a binder, so that you could cast it, wait for, it probably cools to stability, and it's on an assembly line, and it only takes 5 or 6 minutes, and then there's enough that it's rigid enough to start shaking it and cleaning it. And that's where we went. And then you sit around and you think about the next part. You do the same thing, what we want to do, and avoid trying to have something, if you will, I'm sorry for my hands, but if there's something coming this way, you don't want to do that. You don't want to change direction just like that. That's very bad. There's a way to fix it. It's coming here, and you want it to go over there. What you do is you put a 1/2 inch radius right in that spot. You put that right in the design, and that's what gets that corner from being a loss. Because
Excuse me a second, Bill. Excuse me a second. Could you do me
Yeah.
a favor and just tilt your computer screen towards you at the top a little bit? Because we're seeing the top of your head.
Okay.
What-
Hey, Jude? Yeah. Yeah, I set it up and I sit a lot higher, I guess.
It's a 3-man job.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
know.
that's better.
Oh, that's
Good. There's a lot
I can
of,
see you now.
That's good?
that's much better. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So at any rate, I was just working seat of the pants, and I wanted to try different things because I wasn't happy with what they saw was the way production is doing it. And
So
I
you
wanted
were handed the project, I think you told me in the past, somewhere around November or December of 1967. And then,
see, Tasca got his car, one of those giveaway cars. They know what the giveaway is, right?
Yeah, just,
That's when the company knows who the dealers are that are going to, run performance stuff.
okay,
They always got free cars. The engine, or the company ate the cost because they wanted to get things to those dealers at first. And Tasca was
as early as
always,
possible.
pardon?
As early as possible.
Yeah. And Tasca was very favored because he was the second largest Ford dealer in the United States and the smallest state in the United States. And he was only smelling distance away from the leader, which is a big company in California. So
okay.
he gets an early car. He takes it out to race against the Chrysler, Chevy dealer across the street, and they meet out there on a speed or a fast drive.
Yeah, the interstate goes right near the Tasco
Yeah, well,
dealership. Interstate
Tasca on the west side of the road of
Yeah,
the street where the dealership, and the Chevy dealer is on the opposite side, right across the street from them. And they went down a ramp and waited for the traffic to clear, and then they would get out on the straightaway, and because they'd do it in the evening, and Tasca would say, I'll count off. We'll go on 3, and I'll count 1, 2, 3. And and what always happened, and the guy driving for the dealer knew, because he's beat the shit out of Tasca a dozen times already. Tasca's going to say 1, 2, and he leaves 3.
Yep.
So Tasca's trying to cheat, and this guy said, screw you. I know what you're going to do. And he would beat the hell out of the new car.
Go on too.
And the first thing is, he goes back to the Ford garage, talks to his mechanic, Bill. What the hell is
Gilbert.
Bill Gilbert? Yeah, he did all the Ford family cars in
Tasca family, yeah.
just for the family, or people that would order the cars that didn't work very well and would buy 2 or 3 of those over-the-counter parts to go in to make their car run a little bit better. Sorry, too much iteration. But anyway, that's the way it worked. Tasca was beside him, so he was so angry. He thought when the company told them, we're going to improve the Mustang and we're going to put a bigger engine compartment on it. And then when he gets the car, he opens the hood on the car and he sees it's the same damn car that they had the year before that they were replacing.
390.
And he went and created the KR, and he wanted Henry Ford, the Deuce, to say, put that in the Mustang. And that's what he wanted. But I said, I was brought back from hell. I'd been exiled to the cooling group. They said, you're the acting engineer, and you got to come up with a better engine. And that's what we tried to do.
Sounds like the whole project was less than a year though, in total.
Yeah, it shouldn't have, but you know, there's a lot of competition, you know, for time and everything else. We did the best we could with the design, but we were doing designs that always took a little bit longer. That didn't make anybody happy, because Jumpy, the guy from car engineering that was sent over to watch what we're doing so they could report to car engineering, we just, the four of us talked about these things. I said, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, you know, I laid out my thing. No 90-degree turns, no going uphill. We want to start as high as we can, so we're coming downhill, and several other parameters I wanted to manage. And that's
So car engineering started off in the project from the beginning? Same
they
time
had
as
a
you did, your group did?
representative. No, they didn't have it until we get something that we can make and handle to them.
Yep.
They have to wait, and because it was left to us to figure out something that would make Tasca happy. And when I saw it was all these aftermarket parts plus Tasca's favorite camshaft timing, 40-20-20-40. He always wanted to use that for performance. And I really didn't want to invent a new camshaft, because that takes a lot of time to settle in on a new camshaft. A lot of testing to see that it works, you know, the way you want it to.
So that
Okay.
kind of leads to my second question is, how did 1968 was really the first year for the federal government implementing emissions requirements for vehicles?
Not really.
California had them in 66,
Well,
65,
California,
66,
yeah,
67.
California was different, and
But 68 was the first year that emissions requirements,
that's when the
Requiring-
notification. That's the notification. The change really started. There was a couple of things. One is the use of tetraethyl lead. That was a product that was put in with the gasoline and made the engine to run much higher.
could run higher compression without knock.
Yeah, higher compression. Yeah, that's right. And so, but you had that was an opportunity between when Tasca had a problem with the 70 model. It'd give us some time, and that's all we had. And that's what we met is we finally got the Cobra Jet started in production in February of 68. Yeah. So it had 69. No, it would be one more.
Well,
We had 2 years. We had 2 years and we lost a part of it getting to the start because of the amount of time for the new designs and settling in and deciding how we're really going to do it.
So
And
I
it was
think,
all open. So yeah, I guess we were kind of exposed, but we had a chance, and it worked out pretty good for 3 engine engineers, because engine engineering had a lousy representation in Ford Motor Company.
so what, I guess, I know that the 390 engine required a thermactor in 1968. It was required for 67 on the same engine. So I assume that was just a carryover for 68, but it wasn't required federally. It was only required in California. So I'm assuming what you guys did is took your testing and said, okay, we've met the California requirements in 67. We're just going to transfer this to the new equipment for 68 as a starting point.
I guess all I can say is if the change was that big, then we were out of business, because I fully intended to use tetraethyl lead. It'd
Right.
be
Yeah.
part of my product. And I
Sure.
know that it was only 2 years at best. The company would have loved me better if we could have done it in 6 months, but I didn't know how to do that. I just did it the way I could think of things to do, and that's how we work. And a lot of it had to do with very subtle changes that we made that eliminated those corners that I'm talking about and things like that. Took a lot of time to design it so that the materials you're handling and retaining no lost pressure heads in anything that's being delivered. That was another really big thing with me.
He's still talking calibration stuff and emissions.
Well, the emissions, there was a leeway, and 70 was the starting point, and even that got a 1-year delay for one 7-liter model. The others were working hard, trying to understand what to do with what was going to happen in 70. So there was very little new stuff in 67, 68, 69, because 70 was going to be a really big change. So there wasn't a lot of new stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. My final question is I think you may have answered it already. You were talking about, I presume, well, you said Jumpy, so I presume that's Jumpy Snyder was in car engineering.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was how you coordinated, because, we think of the 428 Cobra Jet engine, it's an engine, but there were a lot of vehicle changes that were made as well in order to be able to handle the torque and power that the 428 was delivering. So I can't imagine, you said that the car engineering would have to wait for engine engineering, but I would imagine that they would have gotten started with a standard vehicle, and in order to prepare, they'd have the specifications that you would put together and work with that until you had real hardware, correct?
I'm not sure I understand.
Just
I guess
keeping the
car engineering is a place that several activities send their vehicles to, and then they have to go through the process of evaluating against the required, like 25 things that were required of the calibration and the engine and the parts.
Sure.
And that's kind of how it moved along. And it was, in the case of this particular engine, we didn't have anything to start with. We had to start from scratch. We had to design several parts, and it takes time to get them and get it right. And we moved as fast as we could. Now, on the engine, a lot of what we were relying on was that new engine that was going to go into production in 70. That was that all-new engine.
429?
The 420, well, the 7-liter. And the 7-liter, yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, it was 7-liter. And that one was on its way because it was already designed, and it was just getting it final so that it was usable and dependable. They had to go through probably
Sure.
a year,
Development.
a year or a year and a quarter of finding out, did they have it right or not? And
Right.
incidentally, Tasca hated that new engine when it came out. I remember talking to him myself, and he was just pissing and moaning about it. He said, everything's so damn heavy. He said, I'm using, he had 175-pound front piece, and then another one on the rear of the engine. And he said to me, he said, his driver goes to the line, and when he's coming up, when he gets to the line, he stops and he immediately revs the engine to 8,500 RPM. And like Tasca said, if that bitch gets under 8,000, he said, we're lost. And he was complaining. It was just, there's so much mass, and he tried to put on big pieces, so once they got it 8,400 RPM, it wouldn't lose as many RPM. And he said if it gets under 880, he said we might as well just park it. I remember him telling me that. So that's how we went, and it wasn't perfect, but it was the best I could do at the time.
Okay.
And
Thank you, Bill.
yeah,
I guess that was the end of my questions, Jeff. I don't know who was on here who has any other questions.
Yeah, it looks like Roger Logan he might still be having audio difficulty. Let's see if he pipes up here. If not, I can ask the questions for him.
Okay,
So-
could I make a comment? And it's relative to what Bill was just talking about.
Sure.
Roger,
Car engineering was also waiting at a certain period there to get go ahead to support the program. Now, I don't know exactly which Cobra Jet parts they had in the engine, but in early on, they were given a task of running 14 seconds in a quarter mile, or car engineering would not move ahead with the program.
okay.
And our biggest difficulty was traction. We seemed to have the power to get to that time, but we weren't able to do it. And then luckily the polyglass tire came along, and suddenly we were able to achieve that 14 seconds. I can still remember how excited everybody in car engineering was.
Yeah, they peed their pants, I'll tell you. Jumpy called me, and they were all out in Kingman, and he told me, he said, you better sit down, because I'm going to tell you something you've never heard. And he told me, that was at the final sign off. That's way later incident from what we talked. And that was something that they generally never ran because they all got typical numbers like 100 or 125 feet for a police interceptor in 10 seconds. And, you know, it was variable, but nothing like they saw. And that's what Jumpy said. He said, sit down. He said, are you familiar with this test? And I said, actually, I wasn't. You know, that's something you guys worry about. And he said the car ran 793 feet. And they could not believe it out there at Kingman. They said there's got to be a problem. They've never been anywhere near.
Yeah, they've never been over like 670 or something.
I don't know what it was. I didn't know what the lowers, but it ran faster than they ever had encountered at Kingman. And the people that were in Dearborn said, yeah, you know, like somebody said, we haven't run that test in God knows how many years, because we already know they're always between 175 feet and 140 feet or something. You know, they decided to run it, and they got the surprise of their life. And he said they're going to recalibrate tonight. They're going to tear it all down, clean it, put it back together, and we'll do it tomorrow. And he called me tomorrow and he said, we got the same speed, 1 mile an hour slower. And that's 793 and 792 back to back, or not back to back, day to day. And it was mind numbing to think, you know, how far it got that line. But and when I talked to the writer that came and evaluated the real car with all the real stuff, and he called me and he said, you know, he was just blown away. He said that is the fastest pure stock car that he'd ever driven. That's just what he said. And he said, you know, and then, but what he really liked is he drove around all day only using fifth gear and third gear. Yeah. It just over and over and over. And he said it was so smooth, it was almost, you know, eerie. He just went on and on and on and on. And then when you talked about the acceleration, and I said, yeah, I call that what the hell I call it? The Grand Prix, this street Grand Prix, you know, beat the guy from the red light to the next to the light. And the Cobra Jet could wax anything. There wasn't a Chevy or anything else could catch a Cobra Jet. And that was a shock to a lot of people. Okay, so that's what I remember on. Any
Yeah, I
other
have some.
questions?
Yeah, I've got some questions from Roger Logan, who's on the call but's having audio issues. So I'm going to go ahead and I have his list of questions in front of me. I'll go ahead and go through those. So there's several here. The first one is regarding the 428 Cobra Jet. So it looks like there was a change, a revision to the intake manifold that happened right around the start of production. So initially there was a C8OE-A intake that was used, you know, during development, and it sounds like maybe for the first month or so of production. And then there was a change to a C8OE-C variant. And his question was that most people feel that the Dash A intake is like at least 5 horsepower better than the Dash C intake. So it was like a performance hit to go to the revised intake. He's wondering if you know about that change and what, you know, and why it was changed.
I guess I must admit, I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, by that time you'd already been gone from there, because you're talking like what, March of 68.
Yeah,
Oh.
the changeover was right around the beginning of April.
And
So
you'd already,
as far as
Yeah,
engineering is concerned,
I
that
had
would have
already,
been
I had
January, February.
already, I was tied up with the engines that wouldn't stop. That was a big problem. We were warned by the EPA
Dieseling.
about the eliminating and reducing the additive that made the power.
Yep.
And so there were a lot of the groups, different size engines, were all trying to figure out how to stop the engine from where you couldn't shut it off.
yeah, run on.
It was just, you turn off the key and the car would just, bop, 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 you know, make a funny noise, and it would keep on running. You turn the key back on and it's smooth, turn it off and and that was the problem with the loss of
Yeah.
that special compound, you know, that made power.
So
And
they'd already moved you on from the Cobra jet, and you were
Yep.
taking on new responsibilities.
yeah, and the Boss 302 they
Was
were
on
all
the
at the
horizon.
same, you know, that, pardon?
It was coming up at the same time.
Yeah, it was headed that way, and I was stuck trying to figure out why the engine was detonating so much, or what could we do so it wouldn't have that after run, because the cars they were trying, they were having a hell of a time. And we finally found it. They had an hour or a day and a half of wind tunnel scheduled, and if we needed it, and it took about 6.5 or 7 hours. We found out if we retarded the camshaft a certain degree, and it was quite a bit, the engine would shut off. And we tried it and tried it and tried it, and it never faulted. We got it. We really moved all the camshaft drive time delivery, and that's what helped to stop the jerking and jerking and jerking and jerking, and everybody just went right to it. And I think Ford was the first one to really get a grip on it. The others were all having problems with that same thing. Yeah, the after run, you could shut it off, but you couldn't stop it from running backwards or running forward until you get to the end. Then it would go. That's when it stopped. Is that okay?
Okay. Yep. I'm moving on to Roger's next question again regarding the 428 Cobra jet. So he noted that when we met last time and interviewed you back in 2023, you had mentioned that the 428 Cobra jet made 367 horsepower on the B curve. But earlier, you had done a write-up with Chris, and in that one, you said that it finally made 335 to 340 horsepower on the B curve. He was wanting to know if the 367
That,
horsepower engine was an early prototype, or maybe used a better cam or something.
now we're into a little bit different logic on my side. We had a Fairlane family car was rated at a passenger car was rated at 325 horsepower. The Police Interceptor FE engine was rated at 345 horsepower. So you got the two numbers. So when I was contacted, they said, well, you didn't give us a curve yet. And I said, well, we'll give you any curve you want. You know, what? And he said, no, what are you making? And my thought was, this is this is really what happened. I said, you should record it as 335, halfway between that one and that one. That's why it came out at 335.
Okay.
I never saw the engine run at three at 335. I just give them a number because I knew with that number there wouldn't be. You'd buy a car and then the insurance company says, well, we're going to up your premium. That's all I was doing. I knew what it would do. I had been in a dynamometer when we were developing, and we were up as high as 700 and
Yeah, that's all kinds of trick stuff. The
Yeah.
write-up you did on the, for the website with Scott said, 411 was about the actual,
well, that's,
on the dyno.
I knew where we were. We were making good power on the dynamometer, and by that time we were getting down to where we knew where we were going, and all we had to do was do the last thing you do in development when you're happy with everything is you run tests that are like this. 300 hours and 300 hours. 2 vehicles, 2 engines that complete 300-hour wide open throttle. And we stumbled on that. We got out to 200 and something, and we broke apart. And that's after we had already. That's way before they asked me what's the power on the engine. I said 335. But at any rate, and at that time I had actually moved out of our house, and I was renting a small apartment only 7 minutes from where I was to get to the dynamometer department. And so I was spending my nights at the dynamometer till we found the problem. And it happened very, very soon. We tore one apart over at across the street where the engines are designed, and we had another one at the dynamometer, and we ran it, and damn it, we got out insufficient hours, and it broke again. We stopped it, started tearing it down right in the dyno cell until I could see what the hell was going on. And when we finally got it exposed, as soon as I saw it, I knew what the problem was. We were melting the best material known to man at that time for getting the heat out of the cylinder and go up the connecting rod to dissipate it up above the engine.
Yeah, the valve,
And
up the valve stem.
so at any rate, and having been worked on the Indy engine program, and then the double overhead cam Indy engine program, I just recognized that we melted that piece of metal. What we did, we didn't melt it. We changed the metallurgy from a very stout material, and it just overheated that piece, and that's what caused it to break. And the next day, had the engineer, the dynamometer guy, go to the design, where they design the actual engines and the like, and I told him, bring back the Indy engine, whatever one, just bring it back. I want to see what that one looks like. And it was obvious the one that the passenger car was using was inadequate at, because it was running so much higher than the passenger car. And it was trying to take a piece of metal, very high quality stuff, but it was about that big around. And it came up off of the top of the cylinder and headed up. And then that piece of very hot metal tried to put all that heat into a piece that was only a quarter the size or a third of the size. And it was very obvious. We changed the metallurgy of that very high grade thing. We changed it to the Indy design, put it back together, started it up. We ran we ran two dynamometers, started at the same time. They both ran 300 hours without a flinch. And that's when I said, we've got it. And we went from there on with that fix.
Okay.
There-
Moving on.
Do you understand that, what I'm saying? I don't
Yeah.
know if I said it the way you could understand it. That's what I just fixed. What I had is I had so much heat, and it was stuck trying to get up there where it goes away, but it couldn't get there because the piece in here wasn't big enough. It couldn't. So we did it by tapering this whole thing, starting just like the Indy engine. It was tapered all the way up there, so that when I got to that transfer point, the temperature, it was able to move and reduce the temperature.
I think he's
From
talking
then
about the
on-
exhaust valve geometry. Is that correct, Bill? Are you talking about the exhaust valve geometry?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it's the
Well,
underside below the head of the valve.
Right, undercut,
It's
so it
smooth.
was
Yeah.
full, rather than being undercut, it was tulip
it's-
more and the same stem diameter all the way down.
yeah, yeah. It's just the temperatures in the engine go up as the power goes up, and
Yep.
and it just so happened that new engine, the 70-year engine, was a thicker, the one that Tasca hated because it was so damn heavy, and one of its pieces couldn't take the temperature that the engine we were running at the speed we were running. And mind you, the passenger car is still only running 4,500 RPM or something, and we're running a lot higher than that. And it was just a matter of managing the heat so it doesn't change the metallurgy. It was still a great material, but if you change the metallurgy by going over temperature, then it isn't good stuff. It was just, that was a solution.
So, Bill, not that it would have been a good idea, but did you guys ever consider going to a sodium-filled exhaust valve to resolve that issue?
Sodium filled valves.
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, I wanted to try on the Indy engine. I really wanted to try hollow uh, pieces, and the people they just wouldn't hear of that. And finally, it was agreed. Okay, well, we're on a set. So I put on the Indy engine, and they made about 20 minutes, and it failed. And when the engine came back and they took it apart, it turned out that the camshaft was something that happened to the camshaft, and the guy that was responsible for the part, he had to know that it was broken, and he Because he was a guy that didn't know much about anything. He didn't want to play around, and that engine that he said, okay, you could use that one, it had a broken camshaft in it. We put it in, and it didn't make 25 minutes or so, and it broke. So they threw that idea away. Okay, next idea.
So the next question that Roger had submitted was regarding the Boss 302. So he noted that, the Boss 302 was only rated at 290 horsepower. So he says that he goes, I'm guessing those were B curve numbers, or how did
Yeah.
they come about? And what would the A curve numbers have been for the Boss 302?
Well, see, now B curve was what, before we got into emissions, that was the standard for Ford. All of our development was B curve. And then we got our mind changed later on. But I remember, some pretty high numbers were possible on the Cobra Jet. And as far as what we were going to advertise, that as far as I went, it was up to the company. And if the company didn't decide, then I made the decision. 335, halfway between.
No, that's Cobra Jet.
Oh,
You're
oh,
talking Boss 302.
oh, the 302. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the 302. There were some changes.
You're just wondering about the numbers, the 290, and what kind of numbers it actually was, what kind of horsepower it made.
Yeah, he's wanting to know what the A curve numbers were for the Boss 302, if you remember.
The Boss 302. I probably did something that was pretty stupid. The first year group had, and it pissed off a lot of people. But I had already started racing. That, what the hell was the name of the company? At any rate, I was racing, and I was racing a Boss 302. No, not when I started. I started with the
Gymkhana.
the car that I bought.
But again, he's just wondering if you knew numbers.
No, I don't, because I wasn't actually testing or standing around waiting for information. I was on to different things. It's like the knocking or the detonation problem and the things like that. And I designed the things using like parts of the 7-liter to use the wider,
Using the big head.
the big head. Yeah, that was in there because that made for a better shape. And that's the way I did it.
But
I
you
just
don't recall the numbers from
I know.
dynamometer.
To tell you the truth, I was not working with a group that was working for me. I was working with a group that were trying to figure out what the problems are at the company. It's just what I got. That was the hand I was dealt, and that's the hand I played. I did not run any of those things. I just made sure the parts fit together. That's as far as I needed to go. And then the two guys that were assigned, they said, well, we'll take over. That's what we're here for. And I went back to what I was doing. So
Okay.
I really didn't know what the Cobra Jet or what the output was on the Boss 302 because I was dealing in other things and I didn't take the time to go look it up. I was very sure where we were going to go and we were going to get running pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, I was at the last Boss 302 or the 302 boss get together in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we had a hell of a good time, and the people just people were just all around us all the time, and spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people. And I must have, I didn't count them, but I must have autographed at least 300 shirts. They'd have, because they set me up in a place, and the people would just line up. They come in, they want me to put a signature on their shirt. And I just always say, well, where do you want it? And they go, well, you can put it anywhere. I said, no, I want you to put it where you'd like me to do it. And I did that for hours.
Bill, you can start selling them.
Pardon?
You can start selling those shirts.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, she sent us several. We got
yeah,
some-
we did
we'll
get.
make a shadow box and a few things here and there.
Yeah, I do have, Randy always has made sure I got a shirt, and his mail, every time have been with him, they mail me a shirt, even the year I fell off of the ladder and broke my pelvis and whatever else I broke, my wrist and everything else. I was supposed to go for that reunion and I missed it. So that's why I went this time, make sure I put in my appearance. And they had a very large group of people, and they were all very nice and all wanted to talk and stuff like that. So I had a good time, they had a good time, and that was satisfactory for me.
Okay. Roger's next question is also about the Boss 302. So he's curious to know if it was hard to get that engine to pass emissions because it had, a solid lifter cam, a big 780 Holly, and he is surprised that you're able to pass emissions with that combination, but for the FE stuff, you couldn't go with a radical solid lifter cam like that. So he's just wondering if it was difficult to get the Boss 302 to pass emissions.
Well, I'd just say when I did the Boss 302, I really wasn't concerned about it.
Yeah, and you were kind of in and out, right?
Yeah,
You come in and you'd work on a problem, and then you'd go back to what you were doing.
yeah. It was a funny time because
So you weren't
suddenly
dedicated.
they decided they wanted to have the Boss 302 because the fella came from GM to work for Ford and brought his favorite stylus. What was that called?
I'm not sure.
Shinoda,
Larry
yeah.
Shinoda.
And so Shinoda did the what you saw, and I only saw that intermittently, um, and we started right after the start of June, or not June, April is when we started working on it with that new head and the like. And then I was off doing something else, and then check back and keep adjusting until we got where.
Yeah. So some of the finer details, like emissions and calibration, you weren't really
No,
privy to.
I wasn't there. I wasn't stopping in and checking it. They wanted me to do that, and I thought about the racing I was doing, and I did it that way. That's all I can say, and it worked out all right. And the people that have them now just have a hell of a good time every time they get together. And I was glad I could join them this year.
Okay. Roger's next question is kind of a general question about camshaft selection. So he notes that most of the Ford hydraulic performance cam were split pattern with more exhaust duration than intake duration, but all of the Ford solid lifter performance camshafts were still single pattern, as was the Boss 302. And he's wanting to know why Ford didn't use a split pattern solid cam as they did with the hydraulic cams.
Well, I guess all I can say is, other than the Indy engine, the push rod and the Indy engine with double overhead cam, that was the only time I really spent a hell of a lot of time trying to understand the camshaft, because that is a tough business. And like on the 65 Indy engine, when we invited all the people that bought one of the 50 cars that we built to come for ask questions and get answers, and they wanted to know what they were about. And I at that time spent most of the time they were there answering their question. And for instance, let's see, it was AJ, his chief engineer said, well, how many how many profiles did you try? And I said, well, actually, we designed something like 38 different camshafts. There's a group at Ford that does all that work. That they developed camshaft, and they had 35 different camshafts. And the guys said, well, how many did you try? And I said, we tried 35. And he said, what? And he said, how many? And I said, we tried 35. And we had 3 others that we never got around to. And he had a book there, and he threw the damn book on 30. Are you? And I said, yeah, that's how many. We ran 35 different profiles to find the best one. And you got the best one we got. And that quieted a whole lot of people. They got, because individually they wouldn't want to spend the money it takes to come up with a profile.
But generally, the camshaft stuff was left on to a special group.
Yeah, that's all they did. They did the camshafts, and they were very good. If you had a conversation with them and tell them what you're dealing with, they had some ideas about what would fix it. So, and then you run them on the engines, on the dynamometer, and see that that's the way you like it. And that's what we did. It's like Tasca's 40-20-20-40. That was his manifold.
Okay. Jeff Coleman couldn't attend, but he did send me a couple of questions. So let me read those off to you. So he was wondering if there was any planned performance enhancements for the 420 Cobra Jet that got left on the design room floor, like something that you guys were planning to do but couldn't for whatever reason that might have made it even more performance.
Not really.
Okay.
We had everything. We knew what we wanted to do. We followed it religiously, and it satisfied. Like I talked about, what happens down here if you're wasting energy. Everything came out the way it was. As a matter of fact, it was essentially I don't know, right now I can't remember exactly which profile I used. It, that's too far away.
Okay. Yeah, actually his second question is similar. So, and you may have answered it already, but he's wondering if higher performance camshafts were considered for the 428 Cobra Jet. And in the end, you know, it got the same cam as the 390 GT, the 428 PI, and the 427 GTE. So it seems like that was a pretty popular grind and used in a lot of performance applications. So he was just wondering if like maybe there was a solid lifter cam in consideration for the
Yeah.
428 Cobra Jet, or was it always going to be a hydraulic grind?
Uh, it was going to be what,
Yeah, it had to be a hydraulic because it was a regular production, right?
yeah,
It was gonna be high volume.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it wasn't going to be like the drag racing cams and the like. It had to be smoother because not everybody is going to be banging the shit out of it every
Yeah.
second. You know, it had to be
Cold start issues.
it had to do all the things they're supposed to do. And that's where we start. We weren't shooting terribly high, and it turned out making really good power, and we're just satisfied with that. And that's why the advertising guys are, well, how much? What's the horsepower? And I thought, yeah, 335 for my reasons. They were happy. We gave them a curve, and away they went. And when at the first reunion for the Cobra Jet back in
16, 17,
18,
18, yeah, 18.
yeah, in 18, you know,
The 50th.
that came up, and we had the same discussion, had to get the same answer. And,
Yeah, one was the drivability, the higher, trying to get good performance while not decreasing the drivability when whether you're in hot climate or cold climate, because someone's going to drive that car in Michigan in the winter. And you're trying to get a 427 NASCAR engine to start at 30 degrees is damn near impossible.
yeah, this again, my motto to the when I got into the calibration part of the business was, remember, the guy that puts his money on the table to buy your car deserves to get a good performing car. You know, it starts regularly, it drives smoothly and things like that. That's the guy that's important. This other guy is the asshole from the government saying, well, you got to do such and such. I said, remember that that guy isn't the guy that deserves that kind of respect. And that's what's most important. And that changed a whole lot of people. Whoever worked with me, worked for me, was assigned to work for me. I just, that was my song. You do it for the person because he puts his money on the table. EPA doesn't. That made my places I was running, we were the first group to complete certification every year from 19, would have been when we moved out to 1970.
72 to
73 we moved out
Okay.
there. Yeah, 73 we moved out there until I left for it at, you know, I got out of the calibration business because I pissed off one of the highly rated people in the company, and we were the first. We in 3 years, 4 years, the cars from my group were car of the year, 670.
It's in the 80s sometime.
80, okay, yeah,
The
yeah, right.
Thunderbird,
Well, I gotta go
town
backwards.
car, the
1990, and then back 1979,
89.
89, and then we missed the Pontiac car that had the flexible drive shaft. Remember that one? That was car of the year. And then in 19,
Whatever.
before that, yeah, like 15, my department had car of the year 3 out of 4 years in a row. So I guess we were doing a good job.
All right. So moving
I'll stop.
on, I have a couple questions. So,
Okay.
you know, I spend a lot of time on these forums and groups and stuff, and there seems to be a lot of guys who think that the higher ups at Ford could just do whatever they wanted and sneak things down their production line to get stuff built on a special order, you know, non-RPO stuff. Like, for example, putting a 427 engine in a 67 Mustang. Did you ever see anything like that happen? And if so, how hard would that have been to get done?
Well, if you went with DSO, dealer special order, you could do anything. That frankly, however you want it built, they'd build the damn thing because they make so much money for it. It's like those cars that were sent out to the dealers that like to have fast cars. They'll do, the company would build anything because they make a ton of money on a DSO. RPO is different. RPO is regular production option, and they're much cheaper, and they make a lot more of them. And I guess it's just, you know, I didn't feel there was a need to go wild, and I would never think of when Tascus, you know, started acting up. I would never have thought at any time that you could take those manifolds that they were using on the those very popular drag racing cars, altered wheelbase and everything else. You spend a lot of money to do it, to go fast, but you don't want to give that to a people or a guy's wife when it's, you know, you never know where you're going to end up. It was just, you know, an attitude I had. If they deserve, that's the people that deserve the right product. If you want to go racing, they'll make you anything you want, any way you want it, and then you go. And that's what they'll give away, the 50 cars that were given away. Oh, Chris, I meant to remember you. There was at least one car that you couldn't track. I wanted to let you know it was a car that my group had got. Yeah, and we use it for the development of other products. And yeah, I got one of those cars, and it was a no sealer, no deadener, or whatever. It was, and no radio, and you know, flat as shit. But it was a great car to develop.
Is that the one Roger has now? Or?
No, that one. That was the one I turned into the what do you call it? In the parking lot.
Gymkhana?
The Gymkhana car. Yeah, I built one bitchin' Gymkhana car. I'll tell you. Went to 9 races and took first place for production car. And then
That's
the
obviously for you guys, one of the 135 cars that was, we're trying to figure out where it was engineering.
It had 10-inch wide tires provided by the tire manufacturer free of charge. And because somebody called and they knew, and they gave me the tires. I had made 10-inch wheels with another company. They took all the wheels off the car, put a spacer in there, put a 4.5-inch wheel. It was 10 inches wide. I just went through it. I hammered the hell out of the divider between the engine compartment and the passenger car. I pounded that thing back, I don't know, as far as I could, and moved the whole damn engine backwards. I did all the things you shouldn't do and say, well, it's a stock car. And I ran it. I won trophies, 11 attempts that summer. And the next winter, that following winter, the Detroit group changed every rule. If anybody did anything like I did on my car, it had to go to the top class. But by then I was done with it. Then I used the car for another purpose. And finally did some trading to get rid of the Gymkhana car to the guys that run the day into night in Upper Michigan. And I got a car, the Boss 302 car, and that's the last one I made into a racing car, just for 1 year. And then I was satisfied. I only did it for 3 years total, including driver's school and everything. But that's all I needed.
So Roger, I guess you were lucky not to get that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it fell through the cracks.
Okay, next one. Another question I had, and I can't remember if I asked this last time. I didn't go back and watch the video, so I apologize if I did ask it last time. But certain FE blocks had scratch marks on the back, like the 428s and the 427s. So before they cast, they would actually scratch in this in the sand casting, like either a C or an X or whatever. Do you know why they did that? And was that an engineering thing or was that a manufacturing thing?
I guess I need, give me a.
On the back of some of the blocks, be kind of behind the flex plate flywheel, there's many of them that have scratch letters. You know, it was done by hand.
Yeah.
A C, a V, a X, and was that just something done on the production floor just for quick identification?
I suspect it was because there's so many ratios available even in the standard car setting, you know, and I would assume that if it's handmade, they're tracking it off of one of those indicators someplace in the car, and it told them that needed to be changed to that.
Well, it would make the block easy, a real quick identifier for the guy putting it in the machine, to know, you know, how it's going to be machined.
It was actually at Ford. It was a really funny business, and I must admit I was very disappointed at the quality of the management. You know, the chief engineer and etc. Because engine engineering had a absolutely abominable reputation.
Careful, you're going to turn the microphone off.
Oh, they and they deserved it. They really did, because so many people in positions they weren't the base people. They weren't grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. They had, and there was so many of them that just, I wondered, and I must admit, I have told my children and I told my wife, I really had the feeling that the reason nobody came in and said, hi, I'm so and so, and I'd like to get you, meet you better and understand you. Nobody ever suggested until the last guy I reported to. He just said, I want you to talk to all the development engineers and the guys doing calibrations and stuff like that. He said, I want you to talk to all of them and tell them what you do or how you approach it. And I guess I should have asked him, well, what are you trying to accomplish? I'm a manager, I'm only a manager, and all these other guys are managers. Why, what do you want me to talk to all the engineers? And I should have asked that question. And he said, well, we want you to do that. And I would have said, then I better talk to the managers. That's the way I felt. I said, I don't have to talk to the people. I want to talk to the manager and tell them what a bunch of assholes you are and the way you do not teach your people what's important and what's not important. And I know I told my kids, I'm sure I was feared by the people in the front row, and I wasn't trying to get there. When I was offered the job or to change from an engineer to an executive, the guy that proposed, I liked him. He was a nice guy and smooth, and he said, we want to promote you. And my answer was, well, I really don't want to be more married to Ford Motor Company than I already am. And he said, you know that this is the most important and raise you. He said, this is how you get to the top. And I said, I don't want to be at the top. I want to be able to raise my family. And he said, well, you can think it over. I went and talked to Tom Landis, a good friend of mine that I'd worked for. And he had told me when I first worked for him, he said, he said, I really didn't want you to work for me. And I didn't like the way you had a bulletin board up there and you kept changing it all the time with the new information. And by the time we separated, he said, I want to tell you, don't let anybody take that board away from you. He said, you hang on to that. And I changed his position. And I think he finally learned, because he was the only guy that ever, he beat me by 1 day on the getting certified for all of his products one time. And the rest of the time, my whole group always were the first one, year after year after year, to end development of the new, for the new model year. And we set a date of May 3rd, and we would go to a luncheon I paid for, as much as $2,500 for the group. And we were every year until I was ready to leave. We were the first one to qualify. That means getting the emissions, getting certified, and getting a ticket from the EPA. I know that's a brag, but it happened.
Well, that's the end of the pre-prepared questions that I had written down. So if anybody has any questions, now would be the time.
Okay, I do. Bill, you knew Jumpy Snyder well,
Yeah,
and I knew him as a born hot rodder
yeah,
in the car engineering group.
yeah.
And early on, I wish I had the exact date, I don't, but he took a 390 and put what I call medium riser heads on it, a better distributor, aluminum intake, and that car was quick. That car was running at Mustang weight, was running 13.7 seconds at 103.
Yeah,
And yet it never went anywhere because the people, as I was told, I wasn't there exactly. As I was told, car or engine engineering said it can't be done. And yet, 3 months later, they turned that around.
yeah.
But the other point, the interesting point is Jumpy was still trying to sell that idea, because I have an actual test report done in March of '68, where the car was running, just as I stated, 13.7 seconds.
Yeah.
Does any of this ring a bell?
I don't know the specific thing you're referring to. Yeah, I know Jumpy.
Okay.
Jumpy just allowed to go fast.
See the one that did the thing for
Yep.
his.
Yeah, well, that's right. His son, when you go back to the Cobra Jet, when it took the top eliminator at the Winter National, 2 days later, the guys that I knew showed up and they said, I got a present for you. And well, what is it? And they pulled it in. It was the trophy for top eliminator at the Winter National. And Chuck said, you deserve this one. And so I had that for several years. And then finally, Bob's son was racing, and they had a small block. And he won his first race. I stripped all the bullshit off of this trophy, and honest to God, that trophy must have been that tall. And we made a new face for it, and we gave it to him, to his son, for his first win in a car. And that pleased Bob or it's Jumpy and his son, I guess. And I gave that away.
Hey, Bill, I think I might have told you this, but the face plate from that trophy, we did reunite it with the car that won the Winter Nationals.
Oh, okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott Holland back.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, that's good that you got it away from Jumpy's son, because we did give it to him. And you know what? But at the 80-year reunion,
50 year. 50 year.
50.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever it was. At that first
It just seems like 80.
At that first, yeah, that's me, isn't it? That group, there was some discussion about it. All right, I've lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
Help me again.
Cobra Jet stuff.
Cobra Jet. There was one thing. It was part of the question, one of the questions that we had before, and I wanted to show you.
It's over on the table.
When they did the Cobra Jet, when we finalized in and started publishing what we had and where we were going to go, and what the Mercury guys.
Careful, you're on the keyboard.
Hmm?
Move it back. No, move the model back.
Oh,
You guys still hear us?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
okay. The Mercury guys called and they said, could you make a Cobra jet? And I said, yeah, we can make a Cobra jet, but it's not ready to go. And I said, well, what we want a Cobra jet made with the Ford family stuff. And I at first, but this is that aftermarket thing. They said, yeah, we can do that. And so we talked about, and that we use the Ford family, the 427 pieces in the same car. And this is the model I found, and it is the kind of car we fixed for Lincoln Mercury and it wasn't Lincoln, it was just Mercury and Ford guys. They picked right up on it. As soon as they saw it, they did the same damn thing. And there's a lot of those out there that are.
Bill, could you hold that up a little higher so we can see it?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Up.
Here?
A
A
little
little higher.
Just sideways.
Oh, okay. Yep, yep. Mustang.
That was the model, and
68 model.
I bought it at the Ford Museum.
Okay.
And I was in there one time, and I looked at it, and then it dawned on me, Jesus, that's what we did for the Mercury guy, and it went the other way. They once you got this, it's just changing things to make others fit, and that's what was the first Boss
Cobra jet.
or Cobra jet.
And going back to the beginning of that, out on a couple of the forums, there's some talk of a 427 hydraulic. And you said that along about late November or early December of '66, your group built some hydraulic 427s for testing purposes.
Okay.
And didn't like the outcome. And that's part of why it wasn't likely a solution going forward.
Yeah. Like I mentioned before, when they said, well, do it on the Ford platform, because that's, and I just, I'd like to do a lot of things, but I'm not dumb enough to want to put it on the Ford family basic platform, because there were just too many bad places on it. And I just stayed away from it. It was easier to design something that would work instead of something that was going to be in the service bay at the dealership to have it fixed every 500 miles or 50 miles or something. I'll tell you that the intake manifold, the fuel manifold, the cylinder heads were all just way too small. And always compromise the value of a Ford product. And it was there for a hell of a long time. That's a real thing that happened.
Okay.
All right, is there anything else?
Yeah, I was just looking at the timeline that Scott put together, of your
Yep.
career and life, and it's pretty interesting. I don't know if the rest of the people on the call got a chance to read that, but it's very detailed and there's a lot of cool information in there. I'd like to know what this Ford College grad program is. What was that?
Oh, see, when you hire, get a degree at a college, you want to get a job. So you go to I went to Ford Motor Company, and they asked, "What do you want?" I want to talk to somebody about getting a job here. And so she called. I don't know if she called just one or not, but where I was right across the pond from the dynamometer department. She makes a call and he said, "Yeah, we have somebody wants to talk. Would like to talk with you." So and they'll be right over. And so I wait for him to show up, and the guy comes over in a car and picks me up, takes me over there, and I met the manager of dynamometer development, or dynamometer. His name was,
Is it Claire Parker?
say,
Claire Parker? Bob Adams? No, that's, Bob
gee,
Adams is a different one.
shit, last night I was thinking about it, and the name is right there. But anyway, he was a really nice guy. We had a long talk, and I talked about, I just graduated, and I like to get a job, and he asked a lot of questions, but I surprised him with 2 or 3 of the answers, and it really perked him up, and he said, "We had something about that." Yeah, I've been doing that, and they're doing this, doing that, building that, building this, and he said, "You know what? Yeah, I'll hire you." And I said, "Thank you, sir." And he said, "You should come back here the day after what's the main celebration?"
Yeah, after the 4th of July.
Come in the day after the 4th of July. Yeah. And said they didn't want to pay me for a day when I wasn't there. So I get in there, and then I hear, "Well, here's the program. You're a Ford College graduate. We have several programs, and you want to work on dynamometer. So these are what you're going to get." And the first job, the first day, they said, "You got to take tomorrow. We got to get all these drawings down to Cleveland 2 plant." And it was the new engine that was coming out, and so we had to get it down there. And I want you to take it there. I went there, and I see why nobody wanted to go there, because the guy that was running it hated the people from engineering, and he'd swear and carry on and everything. And I finally dropped everything off and left. But at any rate, I really only worked on basic dynamometer development, and it was mostly for a guy who was his assignment was engines to put in boats, pleasure boats. You got a 40-foot. You need 2 engines, one of those kind. And the guy was wild as hell. He's always coming up with things that nobody could understand why he wanted those tests. I got stuck with it. And then when I'm leaving, I walked by room B2. That's the B section. 2 out of however many dynamometers are in there. And I look in, and there's an engine on the dynamometer, and I was watching the guy, the fellow that was the engineer, the development engineer at dynamometer. He came out and he said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "No, I was passing by and I watched that engine in there." And he was a development engineer, and he had been there 3 years. Long story short, I got to be frequent visitor to see what he was doing. And I still hadn't run a dynamometer there. I had learned how to run a dynamometer at Mallory Ignition. And that's the thing that really surprised the guy that
When you
hired me.
were what, 17?
16. You know, right after I got a car, you know, I was over there, and I actually had been over there before that. But yeah, I was in my teens, and in the sidebar, if any gives a shit, I never had a date until I was 17 years old. I just didn't fit with lady type people, and any rate, I got with this guy, and in less than a week and a half, I came in, how's it going, and that was the Bill Gay group that created that pushrod engine in less than a month, because Scussel and Joe
Miller?
Joe Miller, no, Gus Scussel, the top guy, and the other guy was just as useless as Scuffle, but they had worked for 3.5 years to develop a double overhead cam engine to race at Indianapolis, and it got 1 year away from the race date, which would have been 6/3. And they say that, well, it's NOLA catenary. They don't have the double overhead cam engine. They don't have anything. And what they had is they had a Fairlane model 62, right? And it had 2 spark plugs in it, and then they had what's the car we've been talking about? The 63, when the Mustang came out in
It was 64 and a half.
No, it started in 63.
Yeah, they were working.
Fairlane and 2, and the next car, because there was a delay because the first ones out were the 2-cylinder, honoring the 2-cylinder from way up before, and then all the rest of them went to the small block, and we just the engine was there, and the guy said, he said, my wife wants to move back south, and he said, I thought, and she said, well, if I wanted, I could stay here and work on these engines, and I could fly home every 2 weeks or something, and he just said, I love my wife and my children more than I love Ford Motor Company. He said, I'm going to go with my wife back down south. And well, geez, that's too bad. And he'd already talked to Ben Brender, and Ben Brender reminded me when I came and asked to find a job. So he had that, and this guy says, I guess he's as good as you got. He said, I don't know anything about the other people in here, but he said he at least is very interested. And so I was assigned to take over the pushrod engine development in just under a year. And so I started to be the dynamometer development guy And make a long story short, we got 2 weeks from the Indy start opening up that year, and the last thing we had to do is do a 5-hour race on the dynamometer. Now you all know you can't race a dynamo engine on a dynamometer, but we had to have a set of rules about how to do it, which I had to prepare. And I was in the room when it was ready to start. And we had the two operators that had developed all the Indy engine, two really good guys, and they were, it was all planned out. They would change every X many minutes or so, just so they could walk around and then to get back on and run the dynamometer. And I was doing all the recording whenever there was making sure that they were running the right RPM for the straightaway and the slow down for the turn and everything. The long story short, we ran 5 hours straight. Started at 8:25 in the morning. We ran 5 hours, and we finished. And everybody, I hadn't been looking outside. Finally look out through the window, and of course the people are all stacked around that glass access to see what happened, and they were clapping and everything else. And Ben Brender came in and he shook the guy's hand. He said, "You guys did a hell of a job. You're right on 5 hours," and that was the last thing to run. And then I ran the rest of the program for a week or something like that, and then actually bought tickets, took my wife down to see the Indianapolis race, the first time I'd ever seen it myself. And thereafter, from that time till A.J. Foyt won his fourth race at Indy, I was at every one of those races. So that would, every weekend when I was working, I'd leave early, drive to Indy, spend the Indy weekend down Saturday, Sunday, and then drive back to Michigan on Sunday night to go to work. And
So you probably got to meet all those famous drivers like Mario Andretti and AJ Foyt and Dan Gurney.
Yeah, I put a list together of people he's worked with, and it's pretty damn astonishing. I'll track it down and send it out to you guys.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So, Bill, looking at your resume at Ford, the timeline that you guys put together, it looks like you were their problem solver. Like whenever they had a problem that they couldn't figure it out, they'd assign it to you. Did that kind of annoy you, or did you enjoy it?
well, I really enjoyed it with the Indy engine because those guys were really screwed. The Fairlane engine and yeah, that's what they were given, a Fairlane engine with 2 spark plugs, the other engine with 3 spark plugs. And say, well, you go ahead. You got a year to do it, and the 5 guys. Well, there was really 4 guys that were contributing. One guy that handled all the bits and pieces, as long as they were proprietary to that company could make that thing, he could get along with them. But when he had to figure out what to do, he was absolutely lost. And the supervisor was an alcoholic, and he showed up at work every morning, either on a bus or he'd walk there because he only lived 2.5, 3 blocks from where he was going to work. And he's the guy that had the problem that his reference point for being a supervisor, or yeah, being a supervisor, was he was around when they made the V860 in 1928. That was his frame of reference. And Mario Andretti was in 65 was a rookie. You all know who Mario Andretti is, right? He was a rookie, and he was driving for
Bronner, Clint Bronner.
Clint Bronner. He bought one of the 50 engines, and he put it. And when he got it, they took it out of the box. I mean, an engine. Those engines came in a box. It was about that high, and at least 8 feet this way, and 6 feet that way. That's the way every engine was delivered. Anyway, they got one of the engines, and they were very nervous about starting it. Clint had been at the seminar at the beginning, and he heard a lot of things, and he complimented me after the seminar that you do have a lot of information. He said, God, we're really impressed. So I was charged with taking care of Parnelli Jones and
65. Jones, Foyt, Gurney, Clark.
And Jimmy Clark and the Ford or the California driver that shouldn't be a driver. All he was a bitcher. But at any rate, I was assigned to take care of those 4 vehicles. And then other guys were on 4, and that guy, and everybody had 4 vehicles. And I never did get around to seeing Clint after I gave the speech on January 3 of 65. And we had a roaring success. 500 people came to hear the speech about the Ford Indianapolis
Out in Phoenix.
And that meant, as I was told, there really isn't that many engineers in Phoenix, because this is where people come in the winter. They're all over the damn state, including guys from the Chrysler and the General Motors testing facility out there. They all came. 300 and some were seated for the dinner, and then the doing the SAE meeting thing, and then you go to it's when it came up, he finally introduced me. I stood up, and there's a couple of people clapping or something for some reason, and I gave the speech that I had written. The guy I was assigned to wanted me to write the speech, and I wrote the speech with Bill Gay's, some of Bill Gay's input from the '63 race, and but I didn't jazz it up like Bill Gay did. I just used it for the data, and but I didn't use the SAE paper for the guy I work for. the guy was the guy that was running the racing program. You know, he was he had a story to tell, and he went to the SAE meeting in Detroit, and he gave a speech. And I didn't know that he was one of the guys that had a speech until much later. The fact is, he didn't write it. He didn't write the speech. Somebody else wrote it for him. He looks it over and said it was fine. And it was later when I looked at it, I found out there wasn't any useful information anyplace in the way he presented it. He kept it that way so he wouldn't have to answer a question that he didn't know the answer to. And at any rate, I ran that piece and got a large crowd. I was at some place where the Civil War was fought. I flew in there, and then I went to what's the long street?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, where we went for the Cobra jet. Pennsylvania, downtown Pennsylvania. I gave a speech in that building.
Philadelphia or something?
Philadelphia, yeah.
Okay.
And they showed me around, and I gave the speech. And that was, I think, the third time I was out. And the people from automotive industries, that I'm sure of, some of you are, so that's a free magazine that's mailed to anybody working on cars or trucks or anything. And they were there, and when I finished the speech and a question and answer, they came up and said, can we get a copy of that speech? I said, I can't give you a copy. There's a department that handles that. If you give me your credit card, or not your credit, your business card with your name on it, I said, I'll get it to the right people when I get back to Dearborn. And they got it. Then I told the guy, the Ford representative, that that's his job to answer those people. And he answered them, and he said, yes, you know, we're happy to send you the slides, but you're borrowed. You can't keep them. You have to return them. They're called lantern slides. I don't know if you know what that means. I still don't know what the hell it means. I guess it's something to do with the size of where you're projecting.
Slide projectors.
And it goes a long way. There's a room where there's 360 people seated, plus the people sitting in the front, the top line. And then when they opened the doors after the meal, another 150 people showed up. And they were along the side walls of the auditorium. I gave him a speech. Clint Bronner, my friend Clint, he waited for me to finish. And when I got done, the guy running the meeting said, now, Mr. Barr has agreed to, if you have any questions, he'll provide an answer. Clint Bronner, right in front of me. He was so close to me when I was giving the speech, I could have reached out and punched his nose, you know. And the first thing out of his mouth, this is 65, and most of you may remember what happened in 64. That's the year where Ford was there burning gasoline, and there was a big accident on the second time around, and killed 2 drivers. A young kid that was over his head, and a Mickey Thompson race car. And Clint Bronner's good friend was in the other car. And if he had the audacity to say, did Ford regret using gasoline in the 68 or 64 race? And I didn't fold. I said, Mr. Ford is the one that really wanted to win this race, and he wanted to win it last year, and it didn't get there. And so he was back doing it again, and he still wants to win the race with gasoline for the marketing value. And we didn't win that year, but the last year was when we had the high power. This is 725 horsepower the first year, the pushrod engine. This one had 475 horsepower at 8,000 RPM. And this one had 570 horsepower at 6,800 RPM.
What, wasn't it 82 or 8,300?
No, not that year. No, that the limit was 82 or 80. 80. 82. 82 was the limit. That was the limit of the dynamometer. The first electric dynamometer that ever went was fit for 8,200 RPM. That was the objective, and it was a nice dynamometer. Oh, geez, that was a nice one. And I won't tell you about what happened with the race group when they had to go from 6,200 to 7,000. That is a tearjerker. All right, I'm sorry. I get talking and I can't stop. It's like drinking out of a spittoon.
So Bill Gilbert was mentioned earlier. His son actually reached out to me after he heard about the first interview that we did with you and asked me if I would set up an interview with Bill so he could talk about his exploits at Tasca Ford. So that's coming soon. We've been talking about it for, a year and a half, and
Yeah.
just haven't made it happen yet. So yeah, I'll be sending out invites to that whenever we get it scheduled. That should be interesting because I believe he was Bob Tasca Sr. was like personal mechanic and got to work on all of his
Well,
stuff.
he handled the family cars.
And the race cars.
Yeah, and yeah, that well, they had that one that he named something that special one that he built. But he worked on the Tasca family cars only, and some of the cousins and things like that. That's what Bill Gilbert worked for Tasca. Just worked on that, and if people bought a car and they wanted to use, remember I mentioned those aftermarket pieces that you could buy and make your car run a little bit better, and spend a lot of money for a little bit of change. But some people wanted that. Tasca thought that was good enough to sell it with his with the KR piece. And I thought to myself, no, maybe you would one, but I ain't gonna try it. And Bob and I got to be friends pretty soon, and but in the end, when they were knowing what we were doing in the development, he quietly stopped talking about the KR program, and So we used the one we were working on, and it worked out just fine.
Yeah, you had mentioned previously when we met back in 2023 that you had, whenever you guys would get test parts, you'd send them to Tasca to evaluate. So they were heavily involved, even though you guys were doing all the detailed design work and stuff. It sounds like you kept the guys at Tasca in the loop, so to speak.
Yeah, you said you were sending parts to Tasca and out
Oh.
to, Home and Moody and stuff like that when you were doing development.
No, Tasca, you know, like I was told, they said, you're gonna run this program. I'm an acting principal engineer, but you aren't gonna get any money because it takes a long time to get approval for that level. You know, you do it, hurry up. That's what the supervisor said. Okay, well, yeah. Thanks for saying welcome back. You know, I wanted to say that after I had been exiled into the cooling group for a year and 6 months. But yeah, everything worked out. I was happy, and I enjoyed most of what I did, very frankly. And I wasn't interested in trying to run the company. I didn't want any part of it. After I had seen what I saw, because I know there was a terrible problem there that really needed a lot of attention. And that's as much as I got. If anything else,
I think it's probably a good time to wrap it up. I'll send out a link to the video as soon as I figure out how to post it on YouTube. I didn't do it last time. Jeff Coleman did it, so I might have to recruit him to show me how to do that. But as soon as I get it posted up on YouTube, I'll send everybody the link to the recording. But yeah, thanks again for taking the time to share your knowledge with us. It's super interesting, and yeah, we just really appreciate it.
okay. I enjoy doing it, obviously.
Yeah.
I had a great time the other time, and this was pleasant. I wish my memory was as good now as it was then. You know, it was a lot easier back then. I guess I started sliding down the scale.
You're doing great,
Let's
Bill.
say I'm doing the
Thanks.
best I can with what I got.
It's the way to do it. Thank you for taking
I've got
taking
a
the
cute
time to
story,
talk to
Bill.
us.
I got a
Okay.
cute story Bill might enjoy. When I was showing my Cobra Jet car at a show, a lady looked at the engine and said, "How did they ever get that big engine in that little car?" And I thought I should have said, Bill Barr will have an answer for that. Thanks for everybody that helped put this together.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a good time. And
All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Take
Take
care,
care.
guys.
Okay. Bye.
Goodbye.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I was
hold steady.
Yeah, I just gotta wait.
A little bit dizzy.
No, I'm not feeling dizzy, but yeah,
Yeah,
I was whacking the back of my
yeah.
leg. I knew don't go walking away
Okay.
unless you're.
It's okay, no rush.
I hope that was all right.
Yep. Take care, Roger.
Okay.
Are you good?